to learn history of marketing protects you as a professional and gives you a competitive advantage.
Welcome to A History of Marketing. I'm Andrew Mitrak, and this week my guest is Nino Carvalho, a professor, author, and marketing consultant who's based in Portugal. Carvalho is one of the few marketing educators that I've come across that emphasizes the importance of marketing history while educating his students. His work is super inspiring, and we pack a lot of material into our conversation together. It's like 3 episodes in one. We start by diving into Carvalho's book, Mais Marketing, Menos Guru, which translates to More Marketing, Less Guru. And we talk about the history of so-called marketing gurus and how we should think about the role of gurus in shaping the field of marketing. Then we travel through marketing history in the Lusosphere, that is, the Portuguese-speaking world. We start with how Portugal's early commercial and trade history planted the seeds for early forms of business schools. Then we jump ahead to the 20th century to cover how marketing education emerged in Brazil during the Cold War and in Portugal out of the Estate Novo dictatorship. Carvalho also shares his perspective on how learning marketing history can actually make marketers better at their jobs. And he shares some tips with me on how to make marketing history more engaging for listeners. I hope they work. Now, this episode is a little bit longer than usual, but I'm sure you'll find it interesting throughout. I definitely did. So here's my conversation with Nino Carvalho. Nino Carvalho, welcome to A History of Marketing.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited for this conversation. We have a lot to cover. I want to start with your book, which is in Portuguese, Mais Marketing, Menos Guru, or More Marketing, Less Guru. I love the title of this book, and this is one of the few popular marketing books I've come across that talks about the importance of marketing history. And what first ignited your passion for marketing history?
Well, I think was like a spark that suddenly started, inside like a very emotional thing. I believe I always was curious about the history of things in general. And when I started working in marketing and studying marketing, especially in the digital field, where a lot of new professionals and the digital gurus, they took things from the past and kind of reinvented the wheel themselves so as to have a new package and to try to sell that to newbies and people that are just starting to study digital. So that I think took me in a journey to go deeper in what were those concepts, those theories or the practice they were talking about all about, because it didn't sound quite reliable. So this was like a very instrumental motivation. However, during searching for those things and looking for the truth or the beginning, the origins of some concepts, I think that we start discovering a lot of new things about marketing. And because marketing is so connected to society, you also start learning about society in general and other countries' histories, other cultures' histories. So I think it's something that either will strike you straight away or not, because it's very strong. And I think this motivates us to keep learning more about the past of our discipline. And of course, I could also notice that the more I learned about the past, the better my classes and my professional work as a consultant they were as well. So it was like finding my own personal holy grails in a way.
So we're going to talk a lot more about marketing history and everything you found and your your holy grail that you found. But first, going back to the title of the book. The title of the book is More Marketing, Less Guru. I think we've all seen marketing gurus on the internet and whatnot, but I'm wondering how you would distinguish a marketer from a guru.
Yeah, this is interesting because uh, uh, by studying our discipline, I found out that there will be different interpretations between, for instance, what we in Portugal or in Brazil we understand about a guru, and normally North Americans will. So you say that Kotler is a very important in marketing guru, and this is a positive thing. is a positive adjective. When you use that in our markets, probably even in Europe, I think, but surely in Brazil and in Portugal, this is a more negative side to the word. There will be important and positively speaking marketing gurus such as Kotler, Peter Drucker, so on and so forth. But I would say that the negative side of the word, so looking at those professionals that they have a lot of fireworks and everything so easy and magical, and they try to give more very simple solutions to very complex things. And this is very captivating because, of course, people will love to have simple solutions to complex issues in their lives. So, when I mention gurus, is that negative aspects of people who have their own dogmas. They are very superficial and they are quite ignorant, to be honest. Things related to marketing and management, so on and so forth. So that's the kind of uh, uh, professional that I want to put in one side, and other gurus such as Kotler or like very study and hardworking professionals in the other side.
That's right. Yeah, I understood. Even though I'm an English speaker, what was meant by the translation. I think that this idea of somebody who almost is self-aggrandizing or promoting themselves more than they are promoting sort of the substance of marketing, and then it's almost more about this very high level view where they appear to be smart, and their posts on LinkedIn and Twitter and all these things, that they appear to be very concise and actionable. But then you look into the details, you're like, that doesn't really make sense. That doesn't really pass muster. Yeah.
And also one of the main things is that those gurus, they try to sell like one size fits all solutions, and that's pretty much against marketing, because we talk about how important it is for us to prioritize, segment, and take very data driven based decisions, and to differentiate ourselves and our companies against competitors. So differentiation is key. And on the other side, those people, they think that one size fits all solution will fit everyone. And there are other issues as well. For instance, perhaps a problem that you, Andrew, you solved in your own professional environment in the US with the companies that we are, used to work with, they may serve well to similar contingencies. However, once you exported it to Europe or to small companies, even in the US, I'm not so sure. So we need to take that into consideration, especially now when you see a very turbulent, very unstable and unpredictable environment out there.
I want to ask about the history of marketing gurus. When did they first emerge? Have they always existed? As long as marketing and advertising and sales has existed, have there been this type of person, or did they emerge later? Do you have any favorite examples of early marketing gurus?
Okay, okay. So, looking at those negative examples, I always believe that they were always there, throughout history. I was never able to actually find out the primary source, but you have in advertisement, in sales, very old gurus in our history. For instance, especially in the beginnings of last century, because of the connection with advertisement and sales and those manuals that people they were writing, almost like industrial, speed, just to producing things, and everyone they have their own manual, so on and so forth. So you do have quite a lot of examples back then. For instance, one of the guys that up until today is used as reference by newer gurus is Claude Hopkins. Claude Hopkins, one of the things that we should be thanking him very honestly is because of so many bad things they did, Claude Hopkins did with marketing and with a company that he had with a associate, a partner, and they sold medicine. But they sold like a miraculous medicines. They cured everything. So because of that, there was a journalist in the US that started to dig into that story, a miraculous medicine, and of course found out that it was like a hoax. People they were dying, and this investigative journalistic work was the starting point for a number of discussions in the US government that turned out to be the first regulatory, the regulation aspects of communicating and selling to the health and medicine industry. So this is a very strong example.
I want to share more for listeners who Claude Hopkins is, because Claude Hopkins, it's a great first example. He wrote this book called Scientific Advertising, and it's still somewhat widely regarded. And the medicines, the miraculous, I love that word that you're saying. Often we might call them like snake oil salesmen, or that they're these patent medicines that are really of no value to anybody. These magical elixirs, and we almost can laugh about them today, but it's really dark. Like it's selling people hope and cures, and it's doing nothing for them for their illnesses. And medicine in general has come a long way, but this certainly wasn't helping. So it's interesting to me that Claude Hopkins is somebody you cite, and he dresses himself up as a scientist. He calls it scientific advertising, which is just almost kind of a red flag when you look at who might be a guru.
Yeah, and honestly, Andrew, they are still using the science sort of cover up until today. A couple of days ago, this weekend, I was browsing and talking to my students, and there was a new guru. They were selling a social media scientist, which was something that someone to be prepared to post and edit, copy, like those very basic operational things, calling them a scientist. However, most of those gurus, such as Claude Hopkins, I would also mention David Ogilvy. And this could be like a surprise to most people because, but those guys, they had some important contributions. So Claude Hopkins wrote about advertisement techniques that we still use today, such as A/B test, using coupons, to spread the word, writing different, regular mail. Today we use email or WhatsApp messages, whatever. So they had nice initiatives. However, there are a lot of things that we should be questioning as well. David Ogilvy, for instance, again, a number of positive examples. However, he and I think advertisement agencies in general, they tend to have this movement of taking an important yet complex concept and try to packaging that in a way that is very easy to consume to their own customers, which sometimes they are big companies, so things is spread very fast. So David Ogilvy, for instance, took a very important paper, an academic paper in the 50s, 1955, where two guys they were proposing their view of what would be years after that, the branding area. So they start to discuss about branding, and they already read that in the Harvard Business Review paper, kind of give his own packaging and then sold this to the companies, professional markets, and up until today we have this kind of war between branding and marketing. So I think that we should learn more about those, let's say, dark side of the force gurus, because yes, they may have some good contributions for us to think about and to study, but we cannot forget some of the damage that they will kind of let those scars in our area. So it's important for us to know and to know how to balance.
That's a really good point. I personally am have been inspired by David Ogilvy. His was like some of the first books that I read that were kind of historical, in that they were written more than 40 years ago, that they covered a time well before digital marketing, and that there is a lot of good advice, or there's a lot of he's very witty, very memorable, but there are these sort of oversimplifications. Like he says, always print on a white background with dark text, and never invert the two. And well, is that really true all the time? Or I've had a client in the past when I was consulting who had read a David Ogilvy book, and he always insisted on his logo being really large on everything on his website and every little thing. And it's like, oh, well, David Ogilvy says my logo has to be large. And I don't even know if Ogilvy actually said that, but it was kind of like, oh, he's listened to this guru, or he's listened to this person, and he accepts it as a truism with no context and no nuance, which is kind of a dangerous thing to do. You want to take the good, but also make sure that it doesn't necessarily apply to every single scenario.
No, and I think that's the big issue, because those gurus, they have, some of them, like Claude Hopkins and Ogilvy, is still do millions of followers and readers and believers. So they are very influential. So people will continue, such as Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill is one of the hugest hoax in the whole history of management, or whatever you can think about. So even Peter Drucker has a very important, several important contributions to marketing. A number. I think Peter Drucker is one of the guys responsible to make more marketing more popular amongst smaller companies. So very important this is to marketing. However, he also took those important and perhaps sometimes complex theories in marketing and management, and even their own his own consultants worked to other companies, the solutions they propose to like huge companies. He said, okay, so now you just will follow those 3 steps that I did with, I don't know, GM or IBM, and you can do the same in your laundry, like in the corner here in your neighborhood. So we need to take this very carefully.
That's right. I think what's interesting also is you mentioned Napoleon Hill, and he wrote this book called Think and Grow Rich. And of course, that's also another red flag. Think and grow rich. That sounds like promising me a lot. But I was listening to this interview with are you familiar with Banana Republic? There's a brand called Banana. Yeah, you'll see it in malls and stuff. And I was listening to the interview with Max Ziegler, who founded Banana Republic, and I was shocked to hear he founded it. He was directly inspired by Napoleon Hill, and that was his Bible that he followed to. And I'm like, oh, Napoleon Hill. It sounds, he always kind of seems like a guru. I didn't think to take him that seriously. But here's this person who founded this really large company who was inspired by him. So it's this weird tension that gurus could be a little dangerous. They can be simplistic. They can be, they can lack nuance. They can have all these flaws, but they can also still have good to them. They can inspire people to do things. And I guess you kind of have to just look at them, not just take a balanced view to them, and take them in context, that they're not even all good or all bad. It's just they can have good things. They can have also things that are overly simplistic as well.
I think there are 2 things. I fully agree with you. One of the things is sometimes it could be more difficult for, let's say, newbies in marketing to kind of separate, what is. So this is something that we should be paying attention to. And the other thing is, more recently, those gurus, because of digital marketing, they have access to educate. So, give their courses and their hypnotic, content to millions and millions of people. So this is also an issue, because when you have like this power, such as the internet, to talk to and to influence so many people, you should be thinking very carefully about your own responsibility as an educator. So if I just say, listen, I have this launch formula, and you just follow these steps. Doesn't matter even if you have a product or even an idea. No, just jump in and I'll teach you and I'll guide you, and you will have a good results. This is dangerous. So I think that we should be very careful, especially with this educational aspect of it. And this is, at least in Brazil, I can say that because of the deficit of the difference of educational level, you cannot expect that the majority of the population, by hearing those gurus, will have a means to make this contrast between what makes sales and what is completely nonsense.
Yes. That's right. This is a good transition because you're talking about the responsibility of marketing educators, and you are a marketing educator. You are a professor, an author, a speaker, and also as you're teaching people, you're also teaching about marketing history. And when you teach marketing history and introduce, and you're teaching a marketing class and you're including historical examples. How far back in history do you go? What are the earliest dates? What are the earliest milestones and historical artifacts that you reference when you teach?
This will depend. Will depend because I like, even if even if it's briefly, I like to go back to the first exchange, like so 7, 8 year, 1,000 years ago, just to talk how, if you put marketing in a microscope, probably the smallest particle of our discipline will be exchange. Then with this, I try to bring how marketing is connected to commerce, and therefore, the more cities and cultures they develop, they evolve. So commerce also evolved with them, and then marketing was there as well. But I try to put that in a very brief space, bringing some curiosities such as talking about how you can see the same theories behind, in terms of customer behavior, that you see in major sports events today. You can also see those references in gladiators games, in ancient Greece, like organized groups, like cheering for different, I know, opponents in that fight or in that battle. You could have like merchandising just today, and also having the gladiators games, several thousand years ago. So I also make those bridges to kind of engage them via those curiosities. However, I think that it becomes more tangible to them when you bring examples from the past and show them how those things they are so important nowadays. For instance, in very old markets, such as in Greece or in old Rome, in ancient Rome, there were a group of merchants that got together in an organized way to complain to the local government that, listen, we have here huge markets, people from all over the known world. They come here to change, to sell, to buy. But we are selling our stuff, and we have here the people that are dealing with meat. So they are killing pigs, they are just chopping the heads off chickens, everything like very close to where I sell my clothes or my jewelry. So they made a movement so this for these people to go away to a different part of the city, to have their markets, the meat markets, separated because of the aspect of the smell of the whole atmosphere. So we do work today with sensory marketing, for instance, concerning about sounds, smell, so those bridges, they make a difference. And I also think that is interesting to students when, of course, they connect their own history to our marketing history. So in our case, Brazil and Portugal history, and also always making this kind of link with North American marketing history, because is the hegemonic view. It is important for us to have that in context so we can understand better how marketing works.
I love this example of the merchants who organize in ancient Greece, ancient Rome, very long time ago to change where they sell. I think of how you could tie that to a current example is it sounds a lot like if there's a social media platform that has hate speech or violent images or things, you don't want to advertise your product right next to that. It could be you don't want your product associated with that, and it kind of strikes me of like, oh, that's somewhat similar to where you don't want to be selling jewelry or textiles where it smells like meat or people are seeing animal blood, and it's upsetting. So it seems like there's just a connection between those two.
Yeah.
In our email exchange prior to this, you shared a marketing manual that dates from 1767, and it uses marketing in the context of a shopper visiting a market to purchase things. And your book also highlights that the first use of quote marketing dates all the way back to 1561. And so when you teach, do you teach about the evolution of the word marketing itself, and how do you tend to describe the evolution of the word marketing?
This is something that I think that's very important because um, marketing, even today, I believe one of the main things that prevent us to develop, to evolve in our own discipline, either in the academic way or in the practical environment, the market, is that there's no consensus about what marketing is. So you will see, you hear people in the streets say that marketing is advertisement, sales. Those are very common, but sometimes even marketing is kind of a lie. Uh, Nino, do you believe in Andrew, or things that he says is actually true, or it's just marketing? I know he's just very good in marketing. So he's a guy that knows how to influence. So this is an issue. So I think that it's important for us to understand that there's a history behind it. However, if you go to people that write about marketing online, several of them they do say that marketing is a verb because you have the ing part, the suffix ing part behind it. So it's a verb, it's a content. So it represents like movement, so on and so forth. And interesting enough, those people they are repeating something that I see where they are coming from, but it's not a verb. It was a verb in the past. So yes, marketing in 1561. This is a reference from the Oxford Dictionary, so that's the one that I use. And they say that a lawyer in the UK, when translating a piece, and I never found whatever piece this was, from French, he chose to write marketing translating something, and I never found out what this something was. However, marketing for centuries was indeed it has the meaning of buying and selling in a market. That was that why it was a verb. And you can see, and I said you a couple, you can see some very old books from the 1800s, perhaps even a bit older, using the word marketing, just trying to make sounds like buying the marketing, selling on the marketing, or preparing our product to be purchased or to sell your product, so on and so forth. And this continued until the beginning of last century, so the 1900s, when this guy, one of our grandfathers in marketing, so Kotler is our father or one of the fathers. We have grandfathers. So Ralph Star Butler, probably in 1911. And this is probably because I don't think anyone, and there are people looking for this holy grail again. So, like the very first use of the word marketing as a noun. Market at Ralph Star Butler, he mentioned in a letter to another historian, marketing historian, that he needed to conceive a course for the University of Wisconsin, a course that mixed, promotion, sales, distribution, and he was trying to figure out like a title to this course. And then marketing came to his mind, and then he started using marketing since then. And in 1914, he eventually published a book, was like textbook used in correspondence courses in the US, and probably he is the father that baptized our word as a substantive. However, the concept continued to change, and we had some very important changes in the word marketing, such as after we have the marketing as a noun in the beginning of last century, in the 60s, especially 1960, we were presented with the four-piece, the marketing mix. So you had, since then, a different understanding of marketing. A few years later, 1969, with broadening the concept of marketing, again, you broadened the concept of marketing. Then services marketing, relationship marketing, branding. So digital marketing, nowadays. So we keep changing the concept. It keeps evolving, which is great. But it's important for us to be very, I would say that as a professor, not with my clients in terms of as consultant, but as a professor, I am very orthodox about uh, those concepts, because we, at least we that we are marketing professionals or marketing students or professors, we need to be very demanding, about what those words they really mean, because this if in our own mist, in our own métier, we do not have our own agreements about those concepts, this prevent us to develop. So I think this is an issue.
I think this is so important because marketing professionals, we need to be very specific about our language. Yeah, any campaign we're doing, any strategy we're writing, you need to be very precise with your language. And if you're not even precise about the own word of marketing, that's it just seems like we gotta follow our own instructions there. So thanks for that history. I want to shift to something you mentioned earlier, which is the history of Brazilian and Portuguese marketing. That you are Brazilian and you primarily educate in the Portuguese language, and this is a topic that I just haven't discussed on this podcast very much yet. And I'm grateful that you're here so we can discuss how marketing evolved in the Lusosphere. When you were educating marketers, either in Brazil or in Portugal, where do you typically begin as far as connections to their own marketing history?
This is very interesting, Andrew, because marketing, and you know that how marketing was kind of born in different countries or markets will differ. So we use the North American marketing because of the importance that it has throughout, not only the marketing world, but the business world in general, in the whole world, of course. But it's interesting for us to see those particularities in different countries. So, if I want to really go to the origins of marketing in the Lusosphere, of course, I would start with Portugal. As Brazil was a colony, a former colony of Portugal, and this actually, Andrew, was the reason that I decided to dedicate and kind of invest myself to study the history of marketing. Was the following premise. I thought, okay, so I'm learning by reading about the history of marketing in the US, in the UK, for instance, that marketing is kind of one developed stage in the history of in the commercial history of that country. So commerce will start to evolve, evolve, evolve. At some point, marketing will be able to appear. So as a science, so on and so forth. If that was right, there should be some history in Portugal because of the commercial history that Portugal had, several centuries ago. Portugal and the UK and the Netherlands, Spain, France, so on and so forth. So that was my motivation, and I was right. I was right, but I never would be able to guess, the whole history. But the thing is, it's very interesting because in the mid 1700s, so in the 18th century, Portugal was kind of feeling they were losing their global power. You had in the UK several discussions about the future of economy, and Adam Smith in 1776 would publish like the milestone of our current liberal economy. And Portugal was kind of feeling aside, left behind. And they were, few years before that, a huge global potency in terms of commercial and the discoveries, so on and so forth. Because of that, what the king José, he did back then was to start exchanging some ideas with let's say, a sort of ambassador, a Portuguese ambassador in the UK. And this guy was looking at, probably in the pubs, people, they were drinking like the whiskeys and talking about, Adam Smith, the future of the economy, so on and so forth. And you had the commercial class with more money, so buying political power, getting closer to the noble people, to the church as well. So this guy, his name was Sebastião. So Sebastian wrote to the king here in Portugal saying, "Listen, king," there's like a WhatsApp message. "Listen, king, that concerned emoji, something like that, scared. Things here, they are not, looking great. We need to think about having our own managers and commercial cast as well, because this will change. The mercantilism is going down the drain. We need to move on to the future of time, so on and so forth." So King José invited to come back to Portugal, Sebastião, and title him. So he gave him the title of Marquês, Marquis, probably in English, isn't it? So he was a very important figure in the Portuguese history. So Marquis of Pombal is his name. And he was a dictatorship, a dictator, to be honest, Marquis de Pombal, but he invested a lot in kind of revolutionizing the educational system in Portugal. And with that, they created, Marquis de Pombal and King José, they created the first commercial school, the first public commercial school in the world. So this was very important in marketing. And they, as students, they learned what was important for marketers back then, such as the difference of laws in different countries, weights, different measures, the ways of measuring and weight things, exchange, how to write commercial letters, so on and so forth. So that's the very origin of marketing in the Lusosphere.
Was this called the Aula do Comercio?
Aula do comércio, yeah. It's like and in this sense, if I would be translated as like commerce school, was like the
Okay.
meaning. Was a
Yeah.
was a technical school. It's not a university, but teach some profession, some trade. People learn some trade.
In your book also, I think it cited that they taught things like bookkeeping and accounting and double entry, and that's like foundational to having businesses today. And here it was being taught to the commercial class, which back in the 1750s.
Yeah, no, especially, Andrew, because up until then, this commercial knowledge was pretty much masters and apprentice, such as the medieval guilds, several years before. So they made this in a more formal way, more structured way. So you start to have more managers. And they students, they would become managers of the Portuguese companies. That was the main goal, is to prepare them to manage Portuguese and, of course, private commerces and companies back then.
Aula do Comercio, seemingly a lot of things like a business school. Business schools, you learn things like accounting as well, and you learn this and all the things to make you a business manager, established in Lisbon as the first state-sponsored school. So it's just really seems like a very important milestone that came out of Portugal.
You are very right. And actually, if you look at the genealogy of Aula do Comércio, they kept alive. They changed their names, then they merged with other schools, but they are alive still today. The name of the school nowadays is ISEG, which is like an acronym for Institute, like Superior Institute of Economy and Management, something like that, and the Ditch Marketing and Management. And Aula do Comércio also they exported this educational system to the colony in Brazil. So Aula do Comércio was present in 3 different states and cities in Brazil, and of course was also very important to fast track the whole background for commercial managers and business people in Brazil as well. So this was, of course, 300 years ago, almost that. So jumping a bit more into the future, more recently, so I think like in the 30s, Portugal, they had here a dictatorship, a military dictatorship, and one of the things that they did was to isolate Portugal from other countries, and especially in the U.S. There was some, countries that they liked less, so U.S., UK, so they were very isolated, and it was forbidden in the country for several years, from the 30s to the 70s. It was forbidden, for instance, even to use foreign words. So you cannot even like write or say marketing anywhere. So this was, of course, very damaging to the development of marketing and the whole market scenario, the ecosystem here in Portugal. So only once the dictatorship, came to an end in 1974, so a few dozen years ago, what they did was they started to gradually, very slowly, to be more open, to business in general, the country. So in '86, Portugal joined the European community, and this helped a lot. So more international companies, and with more international companies, you need to have better professionals in the market, so on and so forth. So only in 1984, so pretty much like 40 years ago, there was the first actual course, marketing course here in Portugal. The name of the school is IPA, which is the Marketing Management Portuguese Institute. I give classes there. I'm a professor there, and of course, I'm very happy to teach and to tell students that history. I think they would be proud. So they were the first course here in Portugal. This was 30 years after marketing started in Brazil. And of course, if you like, I also can talk a bit about the Brazilian side of the history.
Yes, we will. Let's jump to Brazil in just a moment. But one other individual I wanted to highlight is that your book has a chapter on Fernando Pessoa. I read a translation of this book, and I translated to poet, writer, and marketer. Could you share who Fernando Pessoa was for listeners who aren't familiar with him, and what his relationship was to marketing in Portugal?
Fernando Pessoa probably, of course, I'm not an expert in this field, probably is like the most important and well-known Portuguese, specifically from Portugal in this case, but probably the Portuguese language writer and poet. So he's actually extremely important, and he wrote using a number of different names. So you see Fernando Pessoa in several different personalities writing poems and texts, so on and so forth. So Fernando Pessoa, he was educated in a technical school as well, a technical commerce school in South Africa, in late, in the end of the 19th century and the beginning of last century. So when he was a young person, like his high school was pretty much a commerce school in South Africa. South Africa was a colony of the UK, so he knew, of course, English was probably as good as his Portuguese. I would say so, and probably he had contact with English commercial literature, which probably came also from the U.S. Yeah. So I believe in this link, and this is something that I'm trying to kind of dig into much further with a colleague with which is a history of arts professor, because I believe that Fernando Pessoa had contact with the sales and advertisement literature in the US in the beginning of last century, such as Claude Hopkins, because when he got back to Portugal, he had to work in a accountability office so as to earn, his bread every month. And just to kind of add up to his salary, he made some kind of freelancer jobs, such as producing advertisement and slogans to companies here in Portugal. So he did the first ever slogan to Coca-Cola in Portugal. And I wouldn't be able to translate, but it was pretty much at first it's strange, but then you get in love with that. Something just to say that the taste was a bit different, soft drink in the late 20s, 1920s, but then you get kind of, crazy about it. So this was the first slogan to Coca-Cola. And he wrote a lot about commerce, management, and, practice of marketing in the 20s and the 30s as well. But this was very common both in Portugal and in Brazil. Several that today are well-renowned writers and poets, they had to, make like those freelancer jobs as advertisement or a salesperson, just to, pay their bills. So you see a number of cases that very, famous writers that they also produced several, slogans and advertisement pieces back then.
It's an amazing story. I'm always interested to see where marketing and advertisements can also support the arts, that you see a lot of film directors and such that, got their start doing commercials. And here you have a renowned, beloved poet and author who also was supported by commercial activities like marketing and Coca-Cola advertisements. So moving to Brazil, marketing came to Portugal in 1984. I was looking at your YouTube channel, and you had a commemoration of 70 years of marketing in Brazil in 1954. So your video was published last year in 2024, and 70 years, so now 71 years of marketing education in Brazil. And my understanding is this involved a cultural exchange between professors in Brazil who visited Michigan State in the US, and then American professors from Michigan going and visiting Sao Paulo. So can you tell a story of this exchange and why this happened and how it brought marketing to Brazil?
This is very interesting because marketing started formally in Brazil because of, let's say, a kind of one of the consequences of the World War II. So after the World War, as you know, we had like the Cold War, and both those two main, groups of influence. So the U.S. and the Soviet Union, they were trying to influence more countries to spread their ideological views after the war. And this was known as the Cold War, as you know. Brazil was kind of, benefit after the President Truman in the U.S. Wrote a document where they would transfer technology, investments, knowledge, so know-how, so on and so forth, to countries in Latin America, just to spread this influence. One of the countries was Brazil, and Brazil in the 50s, they started to join forces with the US in a number of different fronts, and one of them was in the Brazilian University. The name is Fundação Getúlio Vargas, and this was they just created that foundation. That also they were looking at develop management, bringing companies to Brazil, kind of try to stimulate industrialization, so on and so forth, with the help of the US investments. So, as a part of a number of initiatives during this period, some professors in this Fundação Getúlio Vargas, they did went to the US, to Michigan State University, to learn more about management, about marketing, sales, and of course then to bring this knowledge here in Brazil and to spread throughout Brazilian, students and professionals, so on and so forth. So they did that. They went to the Michigan State University. They brought back also a number of American professors that would give classes and courses in Brazil. Actually, the library at this foundation in Brazil, the library has up until today the name of one of the professors that came from the Michigan State University and then was kind of carries the name of the library now. So they made that exchange. So in 1954, there was the first formal marketing course in Brazil. And so the story goes. What I'm trying to is interesting because more recently, I saw there is a very kind of timid dispute between another school here in Brazil with a potential history that they were the first several years before. So I'm trying to dig into that. However, what we do know so far in terms of clear documents, and this is the hegemonic view here in Brazil, is 1954 with Getúlio Vargas and Michigan State University. And since then, Andrew, since the 50s, I would say that our way in Brazil, especially, of doing marketing, doing digital marketing as well, is very much influenced by North American, professionals, professors, cultures, so on and so forth. And this is, of course, we have all the pros and cons of that, but the influence clearly is there.
It's interesting. You mentioned how there's another school that says, "Hey, we were first." And this is something that's so funny about history is you have to be cautious saying anything's the first because then there's always something that comes before it. And then also something like marketing that can, as we were talking about the definition of marketing and what's included and what's not. And it's cool, like, okay, you can see arguments for it being even earlier. So that's interesting. One person, one name that comes up in your book is I hope I pronounce this correctly, is Reimar Richers. Could you share a bit about who Reimar Richers was and what his contributions were to marketing in Brazil?
Ray Mauritius is actually is a guy from Swiss, from Switzerland. He's a Swiss citizen, Swiss slash Brazilian, and he's important because he was the Brazilian professor, kind of in charge of this pioneer group from the Fundação, the foundation that I was mentioning to you, Getúlio Vargas, that went to the US and brought back marketing and management techniques. So he was the leader of that movement. And he also was the first professor that mentor, let's say, the first masters and doctors in marketing in Brazil. He was one of the supervisors, let's say. So he was also important in sharing and just rolling out his knowledge in this sense. And he made a book trying to propose, and it was quite interesting. Never went anywhere, but was very interesting. He tried to propose a kind of Brazilian version to the four P's. He called the four A's. That was interesting because this local flavor is important in marketing. Of course, however, it's very competing to replace marketing mix there. So, and it's interesting, Andrew, because this what makes sense to your audience because a very local Brazilian thing. But there is another curious thing about Weimar Richards, that probably his brother is much more famous in Brazil because his brother is the owner, or was the owner, they both are deceased, was the owner of the main translators company of American movies in Brazil. So, of course, we have here thousands and tons of American movies and TV shows, so on and so forth, and they translate. So, when you said like Brazilian translation, then they said the name of Herbert Richards, which was his brother. So everyone in Brazil know Herbert Richards, but doesn't know Weimar Richards.
So thanks for this tour of history of Portugal and Brazil. We only spent 20 minutes or so on it, but I'm sure we could spend hours just looking and more looking just into this topic. But if you were to look at the Lusosphere, marketing the Lusosphere and its relation to the rest of the world, how do you see the work of Portuguese and Brazilian marketers influencing marketing beyond the Lusosphere? Or do you feel like it's more the other way of marketers in North America or in the English-speaking world sort of influencing Portuguese-speaking marketers? Or I guess, how do you see the relationship between the two and the impact on marketing more broadly?
This is a great question for a number of reasons. On one hand, I believe that it's very recent in a number of areas, this movement of trying to look at local histories via a different lens than the hegemonic view. So we are starting really very, very recently in Brazil, in Portugal, to try to see what is the Brazilian management marketing history, the actual Brazilian or the actually Portuguese, the Portuguese people, the Brazilian people. We do practice marketing here, it's not only via the US, or we do have influence from the US, but also from Europe because of our past, our colony past. So this is a movement that's very recent, I think, in several countries. So this is one aspect. The other aspect is, I think that Brazilian and Portuguese markets, they were, and they still are very different. In Portugal, Andrew, just so you know, there are uh, 10 million, perhaps 11 million inhabitants. In Brazil, we have 222 million. So that difference is huge, not only in the numbers, but when you have 200 million people in your country, then you have more companies because they have a huge markets to sell. You have more money circulating the economy. Brazil is a hub to the entire Latin America, and also a hub to other countries as well. And because you have so much money circulating the economy, you have great universities, multinational companies, great advertisement agencies. So it's like a very positive, cycle that you have over there. In Portugal, you have only 10 million people. You have a very recent democracy, even more recent than in Brazil. You have a huge influence from Europe because they are one of the smallest countries in the European Union. So you have different influences, and I think that those, have pros and cons as in anything else. However, when you look at the Lusosphere in Africa, such as Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, you'll be able to see that they have much more educational influence, even in marketing, with Portugal than from the US or Brazil. So when they started the universities, even because they were colonies as well, Portugal went there with universities and courses. So the first marketing course, for instance, in Cape Verde, and I have students from there, they graduated only in 1997. So it's very recent. And it was a local university in partnership with a Portuguese university. So I think that this influence is starting to change a bit, but the reality is, uh, in our universities, both in Brazil and in Portugal, students will learn marketing. 90% or more is still North American marketing. This is difficult to kind of challenge, and I don't think that we should kind of just deny it. This is completely nonsense, but we should kind of incorporate a UK view, because they also have a lot to contribute, even in the beginning of marketing. The Nordic view, services marketing, relationship marketing, so on and so forth. The local flavor, so a broader view would be richer for all of us. But currently, I think that if we do have a Brazilian or Portuguese professor that influences the market outside the Lusosphere, in my mind, I can only remember the Portuguese Luís Moutinho. He wrote the forewords in my newest book. He was the first doctor in marketing in Portugal. Of course, he's retired at this point, but he has a lot of books with Philip Kotler, a lot of books, very new things such as neuromarketing. However, he was a professor in the Suffolk University in Scotland for 40 years. So he's a Portuguese outside, our environment. But things are changing, and I think also, to be honest, that uh, American intellectuals, such as Philip Kotler, they are, I believe, or some of them, they are incentivizing or stimulating more people from other countries and other backgrounds to contribute with marketing kind of discussion in general. So they are also helping this movement of looking outside the US to have a more diverse view and enrich our discipline. Kotler is doing that brilliantly the last few years, and he's not the only one. So I think that new things are coming, and this is very important to everyone, I believe.
I want to come back to the idea of the value of marketing history. You and I both clearly see the value of it, and kind of coming back to this idea of the students that may not see the value or may want to just learn about marketing today or be a little more myopic or what's in it for me. If you were to say, what is the selfish reason for marketers to learn marketing history? How can learning marketing history make someone a better marketer or more effective at their jobs? What would you say to that? Does anything come to mind?
I would say, I believe that it's like in a short answer, that to learn history of marketing protects you as a professional and gives you a competitive advantage. And of course, there will be explanations to that. But I think that the bottom line is, the more you learn about the history of our discipline in this broader way, as we are discussing here, just look at the local context, a bit of history in general, this will protect you of so many, nonsense, lies, fakes that are happening nowadays. We need to be more critical, and this historical view helps us to be, to question things and to be, a bit more annoying in a way that, listen, Andrew, I'm not buying that. I will look for it. Just so I think this is very positive, and also as a competitive differential, Andrew, because I believe that uh, as soon as artificial intelligence surpass our human intelligence, and I think this is right on the corner, it is already has replaced very operational functions such as producing content, so on and so forth, editing video, so on and so forth. The more we move that way, the more important will be for professionals to develop a more critical, analytical, and holistic view. And this will be only possible with a multidisciplinary, background. And I think that history is important to kind of to give some pillars to help us to build, stronger, more reliable knowledge and expertise from there. So I think that it's pretty much that. Protect us and give us a competitive differential advantage.
Those are both great examples. And if you were to share some tips with me on how to make marketing history more appealing to marketers, I guess it's a very selfish question. I'm trying to kind of share this podcast and help others be more interested in marketing history. What tips would you have?
I think that one of the things that will capture, in my view, uh, first of all, like people's attention, and this, of course, important if you look at the AIDA model, isn't it? Attention, interest, desire. I think that is to capture them via the curiosity aspects. Such as the history of spam, that food from the UK, which is quite interesting. Uh, in my own reality here, looking at the commercial aspect of Portugal being a huge potency worldwide, so on and so forth. These things about old advertisement gurus such as Claude Hopkins, David Ogilvy. So I think those curiosities, they usually they capture the users, the students' attentions. The other thing is for us to show them, and this is also very effective, that okay, so you are talking about how important it is for us to today have a funnel here in our marketing team. Right. So let's have a look how and where, those funnels, they started appearing in our discipline. So taking those things and bring back to the past, I think this is very important as well. And I believe that because, Andrew, we can see that out there in the whole world, those discussions about truth, lie, what actually happened in the history, because this becoming more blurred more and more, isn't it, with different narratives, so on and so forth, and also discussions about I think it's the same day, diversity, equity, and inclusion. In the US is the same. So these discussions, diversity, for us to be a more plural society. So those discussions, some people, they are very averse to those ideas. However, I think that to learn in a broader way about history will help us to make those connections. In marketing, I also think this is important to show students. Marketing is a very active and important agent in the society in making those changes. Bad changes, good changes. Marketing helps telling what is how your look is accepted or not, what is a beautiful woman, what is the role of a man, so those things, marketing influences that a lot. So I believe that because of that, we as marketers, we have kind of a superpower, and as Uncle Ben told Spider-Man, with superpowers also you have greater responsibilities. So I think that when students, they discover that, no, this is actually true, because if I work in a huge company, I will affect, perhaps thousands, millions of people. So this perception, I think, change how people, think, and how they will operate their day-to-day lives. Those are things that, in my own experience, I can see when I started having this conversation, a group with a shine in their eyes, and a group just waiting for the bell to ring so they can leave the class. Né? And we need to be very resilient, very patient, to focus in changing those fewer people lives, I believe.
Wonderful advice. Thanks for all of those ideas. And thanks for all of your time today. Where can listeners find you online?
I will have some content in English often in my LinkedIn. So just type Nino Carvalho over there. There will be a few lectures, presentations, classes in English in the YouTube channel. Again, Nino Carvalho. But in addition of those two, to my Portuguese, students and listeners, also I'm Instagram, of course, where my username, and I lost this battle, is Nino Carvalho Consultoria, which is consultant, or consultancy. And of course, my website, ninocarvalho.com, and my courses at marketingelevation.org. They are in Portuguese at this point only. And my books, again, only in Portuguese. Perhaps at some point, Andrew and I will motivate to get together to write some, history of marketing for beginners in English and in Portuguese as well. So that's pretty much it, yes.
Well, I'll post links to all of those on the blog and the show notes to make sure listeners can find them. But thanks so much. This has been such a pleasure to meet with you. And also prior to this episode, you shared so many great resources with me and have just been such a huge help and source of inspiration. So thanks for all of that. And thanks for your time today. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Andrew, thank you very much. And not only for inviting me, of course, it was extremely pleasant, especially because I have a very good reason now to just send to my father. I never told this, but he was an academic scholar here in marketing in the past. He's retired, of course, and he's quite old, but I will forward to him, listen, you know those guys, Acker and Chet and Kumar and Kotler, and there's your son over there. So this, I have to thank you for it. But much more than that, because this would be a bit selfish, but so much more than that, I think, Andrew, that the work that you are doing, and this very honestly, I'm saying this very honestly, is extremely important to marketing professionals, to marketing students, and to the future of our discipline, because we are being bombarded by those fakes, those gurus. It is difficult to fight against it because it's not a fair fight. So you took the initiative and you put like this huge constellation of legends in a place. And when I mentioned to you that I want to translate those to Portuguese, is I'm being very honest, because this, I think, that will help to spread your work, and this will kind of elevate, I believe, the level of our market. So I have to thank you as a professor and as a professional as well, because if you never did that, other people, they didn't as well. So you took your time, you took the initiative, and you are investing yourself on that. So I do have to thank you, and I'll make my best to spread your channel and your podcast, to as many people as I can. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Nino. That's so nice of you to say, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
A History of Marketing is written and produced by me, Andrew Mittrack. If you'd like new episodes delivered right to your inbox, visit marketinghistory.org. There you can also find transcripts of every conversation, including helpful links, images, videos, and other blog posts about marketing history. You can send me an email at hello@marketinghistory.org. If you'd like to support A History of Marketing, consider leaving a review on your favorite podcasting app, or better yet, tell a friend about the show. Thanks for listening.